Explosive new testimony emerged in the election fraud hearing for North Carolina's 9th congressional district today. Republican Mark Harris defeated Democrat Dan McCready back in November by fewer than 1,000 votes. But a contractor for his campaign, Leslie McCrae Dowless, is accused of ballot tampering. And now John Harris, Mark's son, said he raised concerns early in the campaign after his dad met with Dowless, who John described as a shady character. Here's his response when asked about the warnings he gave his dad.
After having the conversation with my dad, where he basically filled me in on the April 6th meeting with McCrae, I expressed my concerns based on everything that I did know up to that point. Namely, my belief that McCrae had engaged in collecting ballots in 2016. I told him that collecting ballots was a felony, and I would send him the statute that showed that collecting ballots was a felony.
They want it that way.
Nick Oxner was at that hearing. He is the chief investigative reporter for our Charlotte affiliate, WBTV, and joins me now from Raleigh, North Carolina. Nick, thanks so much for being with us. Did today's testimony from John Harris contradict anything his father has said in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. Specifically, I did the first sit-down interview with Mark Harris in December of last year after his race had not been certified by the State Board of Elections, and I specifically asked him, did you ever have any indications that McCrae Dowless may have violated the law? And he said no, he did not. Of course, we heard from his son today that his son had specifically tried to warn both him, Mark Harris, as well as his wife. He said he tried to warn both of his parents about what he believed were illegal things McCrae Dowless was doing in the 2016 primary in Bladen County, because he noticed that batches of absentee ballots were being returned to the Bladen County Board of Elections all at the same time, which he said indicated to him it looked like someone was collecting ballots, harvesting them, if you will, and then sending them into the Board of Elections all at the same time.
Now, Nick, John Harris was also asked about how his parents perceived the actions by Dowless, and here's the response. Let's listen.
My impression was that they had received assurances from Mr. Dowless that they believed, and that they certainly did want it to be true, notwithstanding my objections. And I will also say they were weighing what I had provided in terms of analysis against other people that they respected who endorsed Mr. Dowless's behavior. And do I agree with their ultimate assessment? No, I thought what he was doing was illegal.
Wow, that's pretty strong testimony. So what issue does John Harris's response pose for his father?
Well, that's kind of the central question as it relates to Mark Harris and really potentially, some would argue, the legitimacy of this entire election is whether or not Mark Harris had knowledge of the allegedly illegal actions that McCrae Dowless was perpetrating in this election. Of course, he has said he had no knowledge. We heard earlier today and most of yesterday from a man named Andy Yates, who is the campaign consultant for Mark Harris, who says he certainly didn't have any knowledge of McCrae Dowless doing illegal things. And actually, even today, as he was on the stand, John Harris said he still doesn't believe that his parents had actual knowledge or ever knew or had reason to believe specifically of specific actions that McCrae Dowless took that were illegal.
So he sort of painted it as sort of a happy ignorance. Is that how you would describe it?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that he said his parents were choosing to believe the words of McCrae Dowless, and we've heard from a number of people who've said that Dowless himself has denied collecting ballots, which would be illegal, or perpetrating any of the other crimes that were detailed earlier this week in this hearing.
So what can we expect from Mark Harris's testimony tomorrow in light of what his son said today?
Well, that's a very interesting question. So we know he's going to testify tomorrow morning. He's going to be the first witness called. And we're just told by Harris's attorney, the last witness to be called by the State Board of Elections in this hearing. I think you're going to hear more about that question of did he know about what McCrae Dowless was doing. And I think you're going to see a lot of probing questions about that.
And so does all of this put together seem like enough evidence to call a new election? And when do you think that we're going to get a decision from the board on how to proceed here?
Well, remember, there are two standards that could be applied. There's the lower standard of taint. Was the election tainted enough that you can't trust its outcome? Of course, people like Dan McCready, the Democrat who lost to Mark Harris in the November race, would say, yes, there certainly was enough taint here. But then Harris's lawyers would point to a different standard, a higher standard, which has been used far more often in races in North Carolina, and that's, was there enough evidence of wrongdoing that would have changed the outcome of the race? And Harris's lawyers would point to no, there's not. The second question you asked, much easier to answer. The board chairman has said the board will vote to either certify the race or to hold a new election at the conclusion of this hearing. So we will know whenever this wraps up, could be by the end of the week.
All right. A lot of people eager to see this wrap up. All right, Nick Ochsner, thank you so much for your insight on all this.
Thanks for having me.